This is The Speaking Show. I'm David Newman, and you're tuned in to the #1 podcast for speakers, consultants, and experts who want to speak more profitably. Well, you've heard of branding, and you may have heard of being a badass, but I'm not sure you ever combined the two of having a badass brand. And Pia Silva, my special guest today, will tell you all about it. So welcome to The Speaking Show.
Thank you so much, David. So excited to be here.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about your story, because of course it's in your book and you talk about it a little bit on your website. And it's similar to my story that when I started my business, I was doing absolutely everything wrong. But you're talking specifically about branding and pricing and selling and all of that. Give us the Pia Silva backstory.
Sure. Yes, all of that. And I wasn't really doing any of that when I started because I had no idea what the world was all about. I really started because my then fiance, now husband, was a artist and graphic designer, and he was talented and he was freelancing and I was freelancing. And I said, you know what? I think I could make at least as much as you're making freelancing, getting the clients for ourselves. He was getting paid $30 an hour. I said, I feel like I could get $30 an hour from clients. Again, having no perspective on what you can really charge in this world. So that was it. That was my goal. And it was just the goal was not to have to go into somebody else's business and work. And we made every mistake. I tried everything. I failed fast and pivoted often, but it did organically lead me to learn about branding because I had to brand myself. I would say there was a good year or two where we were, quote, selling branding when we were really selling graphic design. We were selling, well, design your brand. So we were selling visual branding, not really understanding the difference. But when I truly understood the difference for our business, I said, oh my God, this is so much more valuable than the, superficial visual branding, which is a critical piece of the puzzle, but it doesn't do squat unless you also just understand the branding as a whole. So once I learned that organically for myself, purely out of need, I started selling that and being able to really scale my prices, scale the value, and became the business I am today.
There are so many different facets of this. Number one is going from a commodity to more of a luxury brand. You love talking about buying versus selling, right? Having the buying mindset versus the selling mindset, the needy,
Hmm.
pushy, strivey, salesy
Yeah, who wants
mindset.
that?
Where's the best place to start with all of that? I mean, obviously, I think the first piece of branding or rebranding that you had to do to make all those other shifts was with your own company and your own value proposition. So, how did that light bulb moment when you're out there, you're pitching, you're peddling, you're networking your little heart out, and you realize, hey, this isn't working. I got to change something here. Walk us through that pivot, that shift, when the big, huge light bulb that informs everything that you're teaching now that started to happen.
Sure. Well, I would love to say that I had my moment where it all made sense, but I was kind of forced into a corner actually. So I had two employees, me and my partner, pitching bigger and bigger clients, trying to produce enough revenue to cover all of our expenses and make the money we needed and wanted to make. And I could never quite get there. And I kept raising my prices and going after bigger and bigger clients because I thought that was the only way, right? You need more money. So let me get bigger clients. And it turned out that those clients were actually grossly unprofitable because they required so many resources, most notably my time and the time of employees who cost me money. So I was getting bigger and bigger clients. I was also not getting bigger and bigger clients. Larger clients are hard to get. They take a long time. The sales process is very long. There is a lot of competition for the bigger projects. So because of all of these different pieces, and I obviously didn't know what I didn't know, we kind of ended up in debt, actually. We ended up maxed out on our credit cards, no savings in the bank, and really in a corner. So we were forced to make a change that I don't know if I would have made such a drastic change if I hadn't been forced to. I literally couldn't pay payroll the next month. We let our employees go. Steve and I sat down. We looked at this mess of a business. I felt like I had completely failed. I felt like I really had to close up shop and maybe go get a job, which was my worst nightmare because what else am I going to do? I can't pay anything. And then this was our light bulb moment. And it was really Steve saying something to me that turned it all around. He said, Pia, we are 3 years into this business and we actually have a lot going for us. We actually have beautiful work. We have very happy clients. We've done a lot of great stuff. We have a reputation. Maybe there's a different way this can look. And it was the first time that I got off of the train that I had been on, which thought there was only one way for my business to look. And I said, oh, you're right. We have lots of stuff. We have lots of assets and value. Let's play with what it could look like instead. And we ended up looking at all the different things we had ever sold and saw this product that we had sold off to the side very quietly, this little $3,000 one-day intensive that we had done for some smaller clients. We didn't want anyone to know because it was so much less expensive than our offerings. And we started to realize that that was a really profitable thing to do. And that we were also surrounded by people who would pay $3,000 to work with us. And that was the light bulb moment. Oh my goodness, we could only sell this and get rid of all the pitching, get rid of all the headache, all these long-winded projects that aren't profitable, and we would be so much more profitable. So that moment when I realized what profitability really meant and tied the number of dollars to the number of hours, that was the light bulb moment. And it did not take long before the tides really completely shifted. It went from me chasing and pitching to being sent referrals left and right from my existing network. So we got out of that debt really quickly. And in the next 12 months, we made $500,000.
So that was a shift, kind of looking at all of your product and service offerings and realizing what was the most profitable, what was the most fun, where were you having the easiest sales, or perhaps not even selling, but that's where people would buy the most, right?
Yes.
And buy the fastest and buy with the most enthusiasm and excitement. Talk a little bit about, because I know that everyone has this, oh, I'm leaving so much money on the table, and FOMO kicks in, right? Fear of missing out. But what if that next big $50,000 client comes knocking on the door? But what if this, that, and the other thing? Talk a little bit about the mental discipline of saying, we're going to stop doing those things. We're going to double down and triple down on this thing. And then how you had to change some of your marketing and sales process and sales thinking to accommodate that shift.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think it's really hard. It's one of the biggest mistakes that I see consultants make is be starry-eyed and dazzled by the big top line number, the revenue number. Oh, a $50,000 project. How could I say no to that? If you get a $50,000 project and it takes all of your time for a year, you're making $50,000. That's not what we're going for here. So, what it took for me to truly understand what profitability meant and to actually look at those bigger projects as a loss. So actually to see them as costing me more than they were making me and to equate. So the numbers I like to use is, we were doing $30,000 projects that would take 6 to 9 months to execute and who knows how much time, actual hours. These projects were $3,000 at first and they took 8 hours. And I said, okay, for $3,000 for one day of work, if I did 10 of those, 10 days of work, I would make the same $30,000, except those 6 to 8 month projects are taking way more than 10 days of work, way more. And I don't even need to know how long they're taking more. So once I really connected with the math, and I'm a math person and a numbers person, so this works better for me than maybe for other people. But once I internalized in my bones those numbers, I actually ran away from those bigger projects, especially because those projects required you to start working for free before you even got them, right? So you're writing proposals, you're meeting, you're pitching, you're selling. To your point before, I hate selling. I don't want to try to convince someone to work with me. I loved the model of just telling people, hey, this is what it is. It's a perfect fit for you. Take it or leave it. I have another person on the line if you don't want it. I have other people behind you. And I really preferred that strategy. And so that's really what I try to teach people to create for themselves.
Now, the other thing that you did, and I think this is still true today, but correct me if I'm wrong, you
Yes.
went from working with kind of any size company from the big giant global companies down to these little smaller companies and the occasional solopreneur. Now it is 1 to 3 person firms, period, end of sentence. Still true?
Still true. And actually, 1 to 3 person service businesses. So even more specific, which is very much in line with the group that you are speaking to here,
Yes,
consultants,
totally.
experts,
Totally,
speakers.
totally.
Yep, absolutely.
So again, there's so many opportunities, there's so many shiny objects, there's so many places to go prospecting and networking and connecting and so forth. Even if you do it right, where you're doing thought leadership marketing, you're doing sort of
Mhm.
inbound marketing, attraction and invitation marketing, where do you go to find the perfect client? Because there's a ton of 1 to 3 person service businesses that would not be a great fit for you, right? Wrong mindset, wrong budget, wrong priorities, wrong values. They don't value design. They don't value a whole bunch of other things. How do you laser target the folks that you most want to be in front of so you can have more of these invitation conversations?
That is a great question. And that is really at the core of what badass branding is all about. So I don't go out a lot looking for business. I create a lot of content with a very, I would say, an extreme point of view, a very clear and strong voice. Obviously, my website, my company is called Worst of All Design. My website says badass brands without the BS. It's very contrarian. I have this statement on the homepage that I wrote a long time ago that talks about being unapologetic and, some people have to dislike you if you want to be loved. And that is actually this huge litmus test that I ensure only the people who really resonate with me get through, which cuts down significantly on the number of people that will even contact me. And when I talk to them, they're all the way down the pipeline. I even put my prices on my website. So, we actually back up to and beyond the $30,000 mark, but now we do them in 3 days instead of 6 months. But I put those things there and I gladly send people links to my pricing pages because I don't want to waste time with anybody who doesn't already know what this costs, isn't already bought into my brand and likes my point of view. Those are my best clients. And I would rather just spend my time creating more and more content to be seen by more and more people to find and filter out those few people that are dream clients for me and who are happy to pay whatever price I charge.
Hey, this interview is a real moneymaker. If you're serious about ramping up your reach and revenue as a speaker, trainer, or expert, book a confidential speaker strategy call with our team. The link is doitmarketing.com/call. It will be the most valuable 45 minutes you invest in your speaking-driven business. Speaking of value, let's get back to the show. So, talk a little bit more about, because I don't want people to get the sense that you're just sitting at home by the phone, posting blogs, waiting for the phone to ring. A
No.
lot of people say, and I'm sure clients have come to you and said,
Yes.
Pia, I'm blogging my brains out and it hasn't done a thing for my business. And they're
Yes.
either doing it the wrong way with the wrong voice, they're not socializing it, amplifying it, magnifying it, making sure that the right eyeballs are hitting it.
Right.
So, where do you balance this sort of inbound invitation style sales process with being completely passive and just hoping that business falls out of the sky?
That's a great question. I would say that there was a period of time where I was creating a lot of content. I was speaking in front of audiences, some of which were full of my ideal clients, others of which had nobody in the audience that would buy from me. Partially because I was still even becoming a speaker. I mean, I think some people want to go straight to, oh, if I'm not standing on a stage with 100 people of my ideal clients, then it's a waste of time. No, I did lots of speaking engagements and events where it probably wasn't going to turn into business, but I also needed that practice. I needed to develop my voice and my brand. So all of these things build on themselves. But I have always put a lot of energy into creating that content and putting it out there. So I did have my own blog. I did build my email list slowly. Having a blog consistently for a few years landed me a column in Forbes. Now I also have a column in Forbes that gets me a tremendous amount of traffic. I also speak. I launched a podcast very recently. Now I only speak on stages that make sense for my time, whereas before I would speak on any stages. More discerning now, obviously, about where I speak and what audiences I connect with. And I also do things like guest on other people's podcasts. I, show up in other places online, especially because now nobody's doing anything in person. You don't have to show up in person, but there's so many opportunities to put yourself out there and to be seen on other platforms. So it is definitely a combination of both. And if you sit in your house and blog and you don't share it with anyone, nobody will know that your tree exists in a forest.
Right. Much less the noise that it may or may not make when it falls.
Right. Exactly.
Do you mind if we kind of dig into your product suite? Because I love
Sure.
the evolution of how you've done this. So,
Thank you.
as you mentioned before, it used to be kind of a traditional agency model. Hey, we'll build your website, we'll design your PDFs, we'll give you the visual branding piece.
Yes.
Now you have combined, and I want to hear about kind of the product ladder, if you will. You're not going to let someone just say, oh, here's a website project, good luck, have fun. It's now completely integrated with strategy, branding, education, and some done for you assets. So it's a 360-degree value proposition that is very, very rare in the marketplace. Talk about kind of how that evolved. Like you said, hey, let's do it in 1 or 2 days instead of 6 months. And let's start with the brand up, and then let's kind of go down how you go deeper and further and higher with these various building blocks that are all integrated into this beautiful package of integrated product suite.
Sure. Yeah. And it really is an evolution. And it's one that I see people try to bypass and skip steps, but I don't think I could have gotten here without all the steps in between. So I think that's a great point. It started as basically visual branding in a 1-day brand up for $3,000. Then I said, oh, this one needs a little bit more work. So we're going to make this a 2-day for $5,000. Then I started to say, okay, well, this is a little bit more of a website. Oh, we want to do a little bit more here. And I started to increase the value and increase the price. So the package got bigger and bigger. Then at a certain point, about 8 months after I launched the brand up to begin with, I looked at my numbers and I decided that I wanted that 1 day to be $10,000 for profit reasons. I looked at the time that it took to do one. I looked at the amount of money I wanted to make. I looked at the free time I wanted to have. And I have this formula in my book. I call it the 50-25-25 rule to freedom and profit. I basically worked backwards from that and said, okay, if I want to make this much money in this much time, I need to charge $10,000 for a 1 day. And I spent the next 6 months figuring out how to charge $10,000, basically increasing the value so that I felt comfortable charging $10,000. And I increased the price relatively quickly. I basically added $1,000 a month, which is something I often recommend to people. Start at a price that you feel really confident about, sell it, and then just raise it a little. Raise it again, raise it again. Like you'll find out what the market will bear if you do that. Back then, I thought 10,000 for a 1 day was the tops and absolutely the max. And now I charge 25,000. So obviously it's not. But over this entire process, as I was with every client looking at ways to make it better, I couldn't help myself as I learned more about my own business. And because my clients are in my space, I am also selling my expertise and selling my services. And I was getting better at that and better at how I profited. I couldn't help it. Now I start looking and strategizing their brand. I started bringing the business strategy in too, because ultimately I always started with, well, what's the goal? A nice new website isn't going to do anything for you if your goal is to raise your prices and you don't understand what your prices need to be raised to in order to be profitable. So I couldn't help it. I just started doing that as an aside, and then it became a really core piece of the offering. So these days, I start with the business and brand strategy in the brand shrink because I don't think that a brand, especially for this space, a brand can be disassociated from the business strategy. Your pricing, your positioning, how you package your services are integral to how you brand and market your services. So I want to have a hand in all of it. And I want to help you figure that strategic part out. And then the brand just falls out of it. The brand is honestly very easy and obvious to make once we figure that strategic part out. And I do find that a lot of people don't understand this whole thing, obviously, because they haven't been doing this or thinking about this as long as I have. So I love taking the, dare I say, holistic approach. I don't sell it like that because that's a hard thing to sell. I really sell badass branding, but I kind of sell people what they want and then I give them what they need. And I find that people are always very excited and surprised that, quote, this is what branding is. I'm like, well, it's really not what people call branding, but that's okay. This is what you needed to get to your goal. And that's why I'm doing it.
So I want to break down the whole pricing, premium pricing
Hmm.
psychology. And this is one of my favorite topics of all time anyway.
Yeah.
In your book and in your programs, you teach people that it's not about what they do, it's about the results. So stop selling the widgets, stop selling the hours, stop selling the inputs, and start selling the results and the outcomes and the ultimate destination of whatever these professional services firms are delivering. It's not hourly billing. It's not inputs. It's not, well, you get an assessment and then you get 3 hours, then there's a debrief,
Hmm.
and there's whatever.
Yeah.
You're
Get that out of there.
commoditizing yourself, right? The moment that we start selling the ingredients, we're commoditizing ourselves.
Hmm.
What else are you teaching and thinking these days about results selling and outcome based sales process and even outcome based marketing that gets people excited and they go, ooh, I want that?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of positioning your offerings, as you're saying, based on the results and the value, combined with owning a process. Even though I customize every brand, the process is the same. And I think people get confused by that. They go, oh, custom work is better work, more expensive work. If I want premium, I have to do custom. Okay, your work can be custom and should be custom, but the process that you put people through should be something that you can rely on and they can rely on, and people will pay more to know that they're in good hands. So those two things are part of it. The other part of it that I think is where, especially when you are selling expertise, critical is to demonstrate your expertise. I think, how are you supposed to be seen as a thought leader who should be paid for their thoughts if you don't know what their thoughts are? You have to share your thoughts and your thinking, your strategic thinking, because strategy and strategic thinking is really where the profit is. It's really where the value is. It's how you take a commodity and turn it into a valuable package and product that you can charge almost anything for. So that means that you have to spend the time building your own authority. And that's actually how I evolved into where I am today, even though I have these very clear packages on my company website. In my own personal brand, I built an online course that people can take at a lower price point. And then I built a very high end, very exclusive, only a few people, I take a few people a year group program where I help people build that badass authority. And I do that because that's the last critical piece if you really want to scale your profits and freedom without building a huge company. You can have lots of employees and bring on lots of clients, or you can continually increase your value in the marketplace and therefore increase your pricing and your perceived value. And that's how you can increase profitability, which leads to freedom, which I think all of us are interested in having.
For sure. You bring up such a great point, and I want to ask you about this as well. Everyone is now crazed with, I need more leads. I need to build my list. I need more leads, more people to
Mm,
talk to. I need to build my online platform. And they're looking back at a history of clients who know them, love them, have paid them money, and have been very happy, and they're not doing anything to either reactivate those
mm,
clients or elevate and escalate those clients to the next offer. So I always tell people, you don't need more clients, you need a better business model where a
mm,
client comes in at level A, they do a great job, you do a great job, you love them, they love you. Now you invite them to level B, then you invite them to level C. And just as you said, maybe they start out with a course, then they do a brand up, then they join the elite annual kind of mastermind inner circle program. How do you look at client quantity versus quality and really start thinking vertically about your business, about inviting people up to the next level instead of constantly chasing strangers and, trying to quote unquote fill the pipeline with new people? What's the balance there?
Well, to be quite honest, I don't think about it as strategically as that. I spend a lot of my time staying in touch with and giving value to my list. And so far, staying focused on that piece of it has always continued to garner me more and more clients, because a lot of my done for you service clients, they are people who have been around or they've read my book, they've hung out on my list. And when it's time to brand, I'm the first person they come to. And so I built my list just to nurture those people. And unlike a lot of people who believe, and kind of to your point, who believe that recurring revenue or going back to existing clients, that's how you keep a business. For some reason, I always liked the one and done clientele. I think it was partially because I didn't want ongoing clients. And I really liked the freedom that my model gave me, which was once this project is done, it's done, and it's very clear. And I decided that I would put all of my energy into just continually building my authority, because that was always bringing me new clients. And most people would say that's an unsustainable model, but the authority that I spent my time building gave me all these opportunities where at some point I thought, hey, you know what? I want to do a group, sent one email, filled the group, and then the next time I said, I guess I could charge more and make it a bigger thing. Sent one email, filled the group. So I view the building of value and authority with a group of people and really putting my energy into bringing high value and thoughtful content to the world. That's my strategy. I do that. And then whenever I want to sell something, there's plenty of people who want to buy it. But I should and could think more strategically like that at this point, because I feel like I could probably scale a lot faster that way.
Super quick commercial break. Isn't this interview amazing? If you'd like to get more ideas on how to start or grow your speaking business fast, pop over to our free training at doitmarketing.com/webinar. There's something to be said for this whole time versus money versus freedom thing. And, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and, there's something about, okay, I've got a $250,000 business. I got to get to 500K. I have a 500K business. I got to get to 7 figures. I've got a $1 million business. Man, I'd love to get to 2 million. My question to these people is, how much is enough?
Yeah.
And how will you know when you get there?
Yeah.
So Pia, in your world, how much, I don't need a number necessarily, but
no, I'll give you a number.
How much is enough and how do we know when we get there? I had one client who's now a really good friend. He said, David, I've been making $700,000-800,000 a year for the past 10 years. All my friends and all these consultants and all these people say, you could be doing more. You could be doing more. I say, I know I could be doing more, but it would be a pain in my ass. That's the quote. I know I could be doing more, but doing more would be a pain in my ass. And he's just really super happy at that number. So how do we get sort of from an internal place, what's the barometer of like, when is enough and when are you happy enough and when are you free enough? And how does that internal math look like? It's going to be different for each of us, but how do you advise your clients?
So I actually have a whole little course about how to price your services based on what is enough for you or what you're looking to do. And what I have them do is price out first how much they spend to keep their business afloat and what they spend to live a comfortable life. And then I tell them to add in, what they want to save for retirement and any other nice to haves for their business. Like maybe they want to hire somebody or they want to be able to spend money on ads or whatever it is. And once you take these numbers and do a little calculation, you can find the exact number that you need in order to live this life. And then you just work backwards based on these other formulas to figure out, if I want to live that life, I need this many clients at this number. And I base it on a working maximum of 50% of your working time. So I, loosely say 80 hours a month maximum with clients. That's what you need to at the minimum be charging. So what I do every year, because I do a big yearly strategy, I go through those numbers and reevaluate them. For example, now I have a young child. I wanted to put him in a very expensive Montessori school. Okay, so add that money to the, monthly expenses that I want. I want to be investing money in the market. So I put in, X dollars for that. So I just figure out what that life is. And then I am constantly tweaking my prices and my offerings in order to stay within the limits. The other thing that Steve and I, because what we really want is not just to make a lot of money and not work. We actually just want a lot of working time to work on our projects. So, how do you write a book? You need time. And especially when you have a kid, it's very obvious that that's not extra time, that's your working time. So I do things like writing my book during my work day, not after hours. So my revenue has kind of stayed around the same place for years. And I have decreased the amount of time I spend working with clients and increased the amount of time I spend doing my own projects, including things that have nothing to do with making money or business, like taking up singing lessons or dancing. Like I'm a very artsy person on the side. So I do a lot of that stuff too. So that's how I look at it. Part of the reason I developed it that way is because I'm somebody who would naturally feel like I have to do more, I have to do more. And having this spreadsheet and understanding the numbers and saying, oh, if I make that money, I literally have that lifestyle and I'm saving that and I have all the things I need. Great, I can relax. And that's really what I'm going for in my business is to enjoy it and be able to relax.
Yes, I love all of that. And I love that you have the clarity to stay there. But like even in your friend group, in your peer group, in your
Hmm.
business circles, there seems to be this cult. And I'm
Hmm.
using the word cult
Yes.
specifically, not culture. It's a cult of growth that you have to
Mm,
make more this year than last year. And if you're not planning on making more next year than
mm.
this year, you're a total loser. Oh my gosh. What do you mean your revenue's the same? How do you just from a grit standpoint,
Yeah.
from an emotional strength standpoint, how do you resist that cult of growth that seems to be baked into entrepreneurship?
Well, I used to be a member of EO. I was in the accelerator program, which is, over 250 and under a million. You want to get to a million. That's why you're in the accelerator program. And then everybody else is over a million. And I left because I said, these are not my people. This is not my goal. There's a lot of people in the $1 million, some of my mentors, $1 million businesses. I'm making more than them. I'm taking at home more money than they are because they're focused on top line growth. Now, obviously, there can be long term strategies. You want to sell a business, there are reasons why you would have a business and not take home a lot of money, but that's not my goal. So I actually am surrounded by a lot of people who think a lot more like I do. And I personally measure my success as a ratio of revenue to free time and flexibility. So if I made 3 times as much, but I didn't have the flexibility or space and time to do projects, I would not consider that a successful year. So I think I really have internalized that. And I do have a lot of entrepreneurial friends who feel the same way. And I talk about that so much that I attract entrepreneurs who resonate with that. So people who come to me, they come to me because they value freedom and time with their family, time for themselves. They're very creative people who don't want a business just to make money. They want a healthy business to give them time to enjoy themselves. So, that's my world. And so I don't see those people as much. Get those people out of here.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Well, last couple quick questions, and we could literally go on for hours.
I know
So
you and I
what
are on
that
the
means
same
is that we
page.
totally have to have you back so we can go on for more hours. One of the things, I mean, so many great things in your book, by the way, but one
Thank
of the
you.
things that really jumped out at me is relative to what we just talked
Hmm.
about saying no to a
Hmm.
wide variety of things, saying no to other people's measure of success, saying no to non ideal clients. And the more we exercise that no muscle, the more space and room we have to do great work, have a great life, have a great business, serve great clients. Give us one or two strategies that you share with your clients about how to strengthen that no muscle.
Mm. Yes, I find it's addictive. One thing you can do in your life, because I know it's very hard at first to say no to clients, especially when you don't feel like you have enough clients. Oh, here's a client, they're not ideal, but I need to work with them. I have a lot to say about strategies to do that. But when it comes to even my own life, some of the best advice I ever got was somebody said, you can really clear your calendar if you look at the things on your calendar and say, what would happen if I didn't do that? And if the answer is nothing, get it off there. And I started doing that and all of my time opened up. And I started feeling very comfortable, saying to people who would ask me for coffee or can I have a phone call? It's like I am so protective of my time that, I respectfully decline and send people, I have tons of content. Do you need my advice? Here's my book. Like I created a lot of content partially to say, I'm gifting you lots of information, but my time is reserved for the most important things. And that's it. And when you start to look at your time as your most valuable resource, which I think is the part that when you're first starting out is very hard to understand, because when you're first starting out, your time is the only thing you have. You don't have money, you have time. So you want to start. That's when you start bartering with people, right? Oh, I have plenty of time. I'll do this for free. I recommend resisting any sort of barter. Even if you want to do something with somebody, you pay for it and they pay you. You need to exchange the money for the value in order for both people to really get anything out of it. But I would just say it's addictive. And I would say to start small and start to think about how every time you say no, you are opening up opportunities and possibilities for something much better. I just had brunch with someone recently, very profitable and healthy business, still has a hard time saying no to clients. And she's trying to say no to $30,000 clients because she can get $50,000 clients. And I tell her, if you're working with that $30,000 client, that is time you're not spending doing the stuff that you could be doing to get the $50,000 client. So you need to look at them like that. There is an opportunity cost to everything you do. And it's just a practice. It's a habit. You have to build those synapses in your brain.
Absolutely. Totally love it. I'm going to ask you two final questions. The
Okay.
final question is, how can people get connected and stay connected to more Pia Silva brilliance? But the second to last question before we get to that
Okay.
is looking kind of overall at having a badass brand. Parting words of wisdom, final things, big concept that you would love people to walk away with.
Oh my gosh, so many things. Badassing your brand is really about going deep and extreme on the thing that really fires you up. Like I say on my homepage, if you want to be loved by some, you have to be okay being misunderstood or disliked by others. So we're going for this push pull. And in order to find that for yourself, it's an iterative process. So it's really about being out in the world, working with people, looking at what works, doubling down on that, and just keep doubling down. And I think a lot of people sit in their houses trying to figure it out in a vacuum. It's not going to work. You got to go work with people and iterate on what's working and what's not in order to find your thing that you can be the badass at.
Amen. Now, how do people get connected and stay connected to more Pia Silva brilliance?
Well, you should just go to my website, piasilva.com. My Show Your Business Who's Boss crash course will pop up. And it's free for now. You can take that. That'll help you find your price to freedom that I mentioned, as well as some really core strategies that I use to always be pushing forward and being my best and getting my mind in the right place to conquer everything.
Pia Silva, you're a badass. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for sharing your genius with us.
Thank you so much, David.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.